Atlanta Motor Speedway on a hot Saturday afternoon. The NASCAR Xfinity Series getting ready for their 17th race of the season. But before they do that, NASCAR needs a lineup, so there's qualifying. The NASCAR Xfinity Series coming up. Dave Burns with you, along with race-winning driver Jeff Burton, race-winning crew chief Steve Letarte, and Marty Snyder will join us on pit road, where it is beautiful, hot, and sunny right now. We're going to have one lap of qualifying, but 2 rounds. So everyone will take their 1 lap. Coming to the green is Mason Massey. And then the top 10 will go for the pole in round number 2.
This will be the first attempt for the Xfinity Series to qualify on the newly configured Atlanta, and I think we're going to have a little conversation about what we just saw out of the back of the 08. I don't think that's smoke. I think it's just a little bit of dust and dirt. You know, they do the best they can to drive the track, or to clean the track, but normally cars are the most successful at it.
A little bit of nervousness about how these cars would drive in qualifying. The Cup cars drove really bad in qualifying in the spring. These cars did not qualify, as you said, Steve. But it was a crazy race, a lot of cautions. Worked well for Mason Massey, though. He finished 6th in this race in the spring.
And even though this place races a lot like Talladega and Daytona, sort of a super speedway-like racing style, guys, qualifying is really important because, Jeff, it's much narrower than those tracks, and so track position will be important from the start of the race to the finish.
Yeah, it's really narrow. You can see this racetrack is reconfigured. A lot of banking put in the racetrack. They run the same engine combination that they run at Daytona and Talladega, Steve, but it's the same car they run everywhere else aerodynamically. So a little bit of a mixture, but it's turned into a drafting race. This is a drafting race in which you see at Daytona and Talladega, but the corners here are so much tighter. The radius of it is so much tighter. It completely changes the way you have to race, and I do think track position is very important.
Yeah, I mean, I expect to see mostly 2 wide during the body of the race, but when it's time to make moves, it just clogs up. So even if you have a fast car, there's just nowhere for you to end up. This is the 91 here of Josh Bilicki taking the green, and I'd love to tell you I have an idea what a single car speed should be around here, but we really don't, Dave. No practice. You know, this is the first single car attempts we have seen.
That's right, no practice for these cars. These are the first ones on the track. You see Josh Bilicki's time compared to Mason Massey's. That's our ticker over there in the lower right-hand corner. If it's in the green, that's good. You are ahead of the car you're being judged against. So for Bilicki, 2/10 to the good.
Insurance King on the hood for Josh Bilicki. A little bit quicker. I'll give him more than a little. 2.5 tenths. It's a pretty decent gap.
He ran the Cup race here in the spring. He finished 16th. So it's a good experience he can take advantage of.
Wisconsin driver hot off of a street course race in Chicago, something he enjoyed very much. That's kind of the background he came from. At least the rights and lefts, not the streets. But Bilicki now working his way through the Xfinity Series season, off and on.
He ran well on the street course. Finished 23rd last week. That was a good run. I don't remember seeing him in any tire barriers or anything.
Kept it clean.
Like many were.
That's right. Mason Maggio on track. Marty Snyder on pit road.
Dave, it's always good to be here and see the locals hanging out here. Garrett Smithley, certainly one of those from the area, but also you used to run the quarter mile here, and the Bandoleros and the Legends cars. When you come back here, do those memories pop back up of Thursday Night Thunder?
Yeah, of course they do. This is 100% my home track. I mean, you know, 15 years old coming here. And then racing with Myatt a little bit, your son. So we had a lot of fun doing that for Thursday Thunder. In fact, I was standing on top of a camper watching them on Thursday, and it was definitely reminiscent. Love coming back here. Can't tell you how many times I came through that tunnel. So always is special back at Atlanta Motor Speedway. What
about this race tonight? It's chaos, at least you can call it that.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think it's going to be a lot like March. It is way hotter. Obviously, I mean, it is steaming on pit road. Fortunately, it's a night race, so we haven't qualified here at this configuration yet in the Xfinity Series. So I guess I'm going to hold it wide open, hope it sticks. Seems like everybody else is doing the same. So hopefully our Trophy Tractor Chevrolet is as fast as Xfinity Internet, and we'll have some fun.
From nearby Peachtree City, good to see Garrett Smithley hanging out and all the Georgia drivers in the field. In fact, Dave, I think there will be 6 in the race tonight from Georgia racing at AMS.
A lot of local families and friends coming out to see their drivers race. Steve, I think we should point out why there has not been qualifying here and what a difference that may or may not make here this evening.
Well, for these guys, we haven't seen qualifying because of weather and the schedule. This is just a place that Cup as well. There hasn't been a need for qualifying. When we go to Daytona and Talladega, there's really no practice, just one lap of qualifying. It was going to be the same thing here. Weather's kind of ruined that in the past, so that's why we're only seeing the single lap. And the tongue-in-cheek answer about holding it wide open as we see the 45 dragging the left side pretty significantly, a lot of sparks. Look at the color of the racetrack. It's much grayer than, this looks more like what I would call a normal racetrack. 2 years ago when it was freshly paved, it was super dark, very black, and it looked like it had a lot of grip. So I'll be honest, I don't know if it has just changed appearance or if it'll actually change grip for the drivers themselves.
Jeffrey Earnhardt tracking in the green. He goes to the top of the board.
Advanced material handling Chevrolet. It's a good run.
There you go. Held it wide open.
What's interesting is, like, do the teams even know how fast you need to run?
No.
Like I don't think that they,
no.
Like, they have somewhat of an idea, but they don't really know how good of a lap that is. You know, once you get in the draft, the speeds change so radically versus running by yourself. And so with really no practice here, with no single car runs, you really don't know what a reasonable speed is.
Ekanori Ogata on track now in the 53 car. Marty, you've caught up with another driver already.
Yeah, Justin Haley, who's terrific when it comes to drafting races. You and I were just chatting about it. You don't really know what to expect because is it going to be the grip? Is it going to be the downforce? What's going to be the key factor?
I'm not sure. Obviously, a lot less downforce than our Cup cars. But thank you to Campers Inn RV for coming on board. Had a good run here in Atlanta. Excited to be back in the 10 car working with Alex Yantz. I drove it at the Coke 600 weekend with Kyle Busch's seat in it. So finally got my seat put in it. Probably going to be a lot more comfortable this weekend, but just excited to be back here in the Xfinity Series and get some laps around here.
What is it that makes you so good when it comes to drafting races?
Just fast ECR motors and fast Kaulig Racing Chevrolets. So hopefully it's as fast as Xfinity 10G. And yeah, just happy to get the call from Matt Kaulig, Chris Rice to be out here, and just going to enjoy it.
Well, Dave, you know, if Justin Haley's in the race and it's a drafting track, he's going to be a threat for the win.
No doubt, Marty. No doubt indeed.
So he mentions the Kyle Busch seat. So when the Charlotte races were affected by rain and they ended up being double races on the same day, Kyle Busch was supposed to be in the 10 and he opted out to focus on the Cup car. So Justin Haley stepped in, the Kaulig driver, on Sunday, so he helped them on the Xfinity race as well, but no time to change the seat. So that was kind of the reference to the wrong seat. And I would say, you know, you would think Kyle Busch would be kind of universal sized, but I will say Haley, one of the smaller drivers, stuff himself in there.
Continuing qualifying for tonight's action here at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, Kyle Weatherman on track in the 36 car. Kyle's a young driver who I think we can expect to mix it up on a track like this with a configuration and a racing package like this on the race car.
Well, it just gives you so many opportunities that some other racetracks may not provide. He did finish 8th here in the spring, so another driver that comes into this race knowing that anything can happen. And teams like this, Steve, like, what's the play? Like, is it to kind of chill out early, try to avoid the wrecks? A lot of wrecks here in the spring, or, you know, try to get track position and keep it. That's a little more difficult for these teams to make that decision, because Kyle Weatherman's great day is where he finishes, is not just getting stage points, etc., like some of the guys that we expect to see contending for this win. So what's the strategy? Sometimes it's best to kind of lay out, see if you can miss some wrecks, and then be there at the end.
And I think a lot of that will be determined on where you start, right? If you start towards the front, maybe try to stay there. If you're towards the back, maybe not push it too early.
Alpha Prime Racing with several cars in the field this evening. This will include the 44 of Greg Van Alst. Many-time ARCA competitor, won the ARCA race at Daytona in February. Has kind of dialed back his ARCA participation midway through the season, trying to figure out where he's going to go next with his career, but glad to have this ride already lined up before he started shifting some things around.
See the sparking again. I'd be interested to get Greg's opinion. You mentioned it, won that ARCA race at Daytona. After he runs this Xfinity Series race here, he'd be a great person. All right, give me the comparison of the two, because I would bet.
Whoa, he's in trouble. That thing got really loose getting in the corner. Good job saving it. As soon as he started down into the corner, Steve, the back end just came around on it. know, kind of took me by surprise, to be honest with you. I don't know if he got the left front on the apron. I don't think so, but the back of the car just came around.
Caught you by surprise.
Yeah. What a good job. What a great job not overcorrecting the car, turning the car back to the wall, making contact. He just kept the wheels turned left, got the car going straight. Watch this, Steve, as he enters the corner. Yeah.
Yeah, it just gets loose. He was nowhere near the apron. You see a little wiggle before, and then the back of the car just comes around.
Can't tell if the left rear tire looks like it's up.
And again, no practice for these drivers and teams to get some idea of what they're going to experience, especially, you know, someone like Van Alst who does not run this series.
Well, that's a great point, Dave. And so now, get in that thing and drive it. Be all right in the race. You know what I mean? I mean, and the speeds are going to pick way up in the race. So Greg and that team need to figure out exactly what's going on there.
Here comes David Starr. Can he and the Mustang do? In the red to start and going the wrong way.
That car is moving around a lot also into 3.
Because the idea, Jeff, is you want to keep it right down on that white and red line, right?
I would think so. You definitely don't want to. We can see both those cars moving around.
So David Starr finishes up his lap as we come to you from Atlanta. What a great sports town. No matter what your sport is, you're going to find it here. How about a local to keep things going here at Xfinity Series qualifying from the Atlanta Motor Speedway? This is 22-year-old Kyle Sieg on track from nearby Tucker, Georgia. He and his brother Ryan competing in the Xfinity Series as they have for so many years now. Actually, Kyle, not quite as many as Ryan. Ryan's sort of a staple. Kyle's finding his direction in this series now. 1 lap for every car. Top 10 will go on to run for the pole in a second round here this afternoon. I'll set the field for tonight's action on the high banks of Atlanta.
That white, red, and white line at the bottom of the corner is a bit deceiving. We were out there on the track a little bit earlier, and it's like the top white line is on the banking. The red line seemed to be kind of in the transition, and the bottom white line almost looked like it was on the flat of the apron. So I'm not sure you'd want to cover the whole line.
Sieg finishes up, and he will be 6th so far. Marty Snyder.
Dave, I don't know what it is. We found all the Georgia drivers. I found another one, Brandon Jones, another hometown kid. So below the cut line right now, 10 races left in the regular season. Do you view this as one of your best opportunities to get a win?
Man, I would certainly like to add my name to the Georgia drivers that have won at this place, and it would always be cool to get a win at your home track, you know. So I'm excited to see what kind of speed this Atlas Menard Chevy Camaro has. I know we haven't had a qualifying session here since the repave. It's hard to believe, but we have some cup data and some stuff to look at. So I'm basing my stuff on Joey's lap from earlier this year. So maybe, hopefully, he did the right things and it'll all work out pretty good here. But looking forward to trying to get a lap down, but really looking forward to the race tonight.
So we were talking about that. What lap do you know what to shoot for, really?
Man, I mean, honestly, kind of a guessing game. I know that some of these drivers up through here say this is not on the driver, but I think it's going to be a lot here, especially being a 1.5 mile track, even though super speedway style package, there's going to be a lot of things that you can do to not choke too much speed out of it. And I do think it's going to come down to whoever runs the tightest and shortest line will get the best lap.
There you go. Brandon Jones going to hop in the car now. And to his point, Steve, you know, a lot of it will be on the driver after seeing some of those laps early on. It looks like it's a handful here in the heat.
Yeah, they're going to say it's not on the driver because the drivers are wide open, which means their foot never comes off the throttle. But that doesn't, you know, mean steering wheel input, the line you choose, how much steering you put into it. Dave was mentioned earlier, Jeff, about running right around the bottom versus maybe letting the car walk a little bit up if the car wants to kind of get tight, as we see Smithley 9th right there. I mean, you see almost... Ooh, I heard something about wandering.
Josh Williams on track now in the 92 car. Who could forget what we saw here earlier this year?
Yeah, Rex galore, basically. A ton of yellows in this. And then the 92 just continued to struggle with putting some of the parts and pieces back on.
And he was asked at one point by NASCAR officials to park it, which means put it in the garage. And so instead, Josh didn't want to do that. parked it on the start-finish line.
Yeah, when I saw this live, I said, that's not going to work out well for Josh.
I got to go to Care Center.
And sure enough, there was a bit of a suspension for Josh.
Yes, and one race
weekend off.
Yep, take a breath, go home. While he did that, he decided that he would put his many hours of visits to children's hospitals to work. He does it almost every track that he goes to, and so he got a T-shirt made, and the proceeds of which have gone back to the kids who he visits on a weekly basis as he goes racing. So kind of turned a negative into a positive, and hopefully at some point has had a conversation with the sanctioning body, Jeff, and got himself back on good terms.
See a new...
And he'll go to the top.
Fast lap. One thing, I'll give the sanctioning body credit on one thing. If, you know, they kind of give you your punishment and then move past it. Everybody in the garage will have their moment. That's a great looking shirt. Yeah, you're nodding. You're nodding. Well, everybody will have their moment, Jeff. So you've had a few moments.
Yes, we've all done things we regretted. You know, this is an emotional sport, and Josh has puts everything into it. And he didn't like the call, and he may have overreacted a touch. He got a lot of fan interaction. Fans kind of thought it was cool, but I'm with you. I thought the suspension was appropriate, but no one took it personally. No one just went out of bounds, and but the little heart symbol was well done as well. Got to admit.
Josh is a fun guy and a good racer. So he has the new standard, a 32.6. That is what Ryan Ellis is trying to eclipse as he goes to work in one of the other Alpha Prime racing cars.
Yeah, classic collision on the hood. Ryan only one other start at this Atlanta track. 23rd was the result. This car, once again, though, a lot of movement around the back. You could kind of see the back moving away from the line at times. Darty. We've heard Darty multiple times from drivers.
Yeah, when I hear Darty, that to me means that the front of the car is steering the car around, and you're having to, the car turns to the left and you have to turn the wheel to the right to correct, and you're moving all the way around the racetrack just making corrections as the car is turning where you don't want it to turn.
And now, if speed didn't matter, every crew chief on pit road could make these things drive like a Cadillac. But to try to have a car be faster and more competitive, you do things to, we'll call it trim it out, which is put the car in the correct position aerodynamically. But some of those things, Jeff, to your point, make the front very sensitive. It can be front toe, front camber, rear spring combination, all of those things. The drivers don't love the way it drives, but if it makes the lap time faster, then it would be more advantageous. The question is, you can jump over that fence and get it where someone like poor Joe Graff Jr. here in the 38, right? You can get it where it's not comfortable to drive. So far, so good.
Steve, if you were Ryan Ellis's crew chief, he called it Darty. How much can you do between now and the race per the rules, and what would you do?
Not as much as you would like. If you're looking for front end settings and things like that, that's kind of off limits with this impound procedure. But if it was either how it's timing on the front suspension, the front bump stops, or rear ride height, things like that can be adjusted. We'll just have to see what they do. You can also come up with a plan and do it under the first pit stop if we have a lengthy yellow.
Marty, you're going to break your string of Georgia drivers here with a kid from South Carolina.
Yeah, we moved a little further north to Spartanburg, South Carolina, and Jeremy Clements. So let's see if you agree with my theory. You won Daytona last August. Does that then make you one of the threats for the win tonight?
Why not? I mean, it's a mini speedway race. Yeah. So we've done it before. We can do it again, man. I'm just excited to be here. We got an awesome looking patriotic scheme with the Flying Form concrete structure Chevy, and yeah, we'll hold it wide open, see if we can go as fast as Xfinity 10G network. I don't know what we got. We have no idea, but we had a lot of speed last time we were here, and stay out of trouble, and let's go win this thing.
We're hearing the word Darty a lot on these qualifying runs. Yeah, exactly. How does that make you think as a driver?
Well, I didn't know that, Marty.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm watching it on this screen. I'm watching it on your screen, but yeah, we got a little 10-to-1 box on this thing. I'm sure it will be a little Darty, but we just have to hang on. One lap. Surely we can do that.
There you go. So, Steve, unpack that a little bit. A 10-to-1 box, what would that do for the driver?
Well, the speed will be very quick, and I'll give you another note. Don't ever give the bad news to a driver before he has to qualify, Marty. You let him go out there in the unknown. He was mentally ready for one lap. Hold it wide open. But, yeah, 10-to-1's way faster than I thought they would have at a track of this size at wide open throttle. Just means it's basically the ratio between how much you turn the steering wheel and how much the front tires themselves turn.
Jeremy Clements has 447 starts to his credit in this series, so he'll probably know a little bit about what to expect. Brennan Poole has put the 6 car 6th so far And this is Ty Gibbs in one of the Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity cars. Let's look back to last November when Ty did this, took that 54 car to victory lane in the championship.
And remember, this was after a controversial race in Martinsville where he had some contact with his teammate. There was a lot of conversation about that. People were mad at him, and he just went out there and delivered. He just went out there, and the pressure was on, and he said, you know what? I can do two things at once. I can deal with pressure and win a championship. And with all that considered, I thought it was a great drive by a young man that had a lot of fingers pointing at him. And drivers, and we were there in the media thing, and drivers were talking about him. I mean, it was contentious. And he just said, all right, you guys play that game, and I'm going to win to take his trophy home.
Looking to make his 5th start this year, trying to look for a little bounce back. Had a good car at Nashville, got caught up in an accident, none of his own doing. But hasn't won, which is a little surprising. Even in only 4 starts, you would have thought he would have maybe broke through and got to victory lane.
You know, on plate races, the Toyotas, it's been a long time. They have not been on drafting style racetracks. They have not had the speed that you would expect as he goes to P1. But they just have not had the raw speed. And you wonder, Steve, how much focus goes into, you know, you only run a few of these a year, but now that you've added 2 races at Atlanta, now that focus becomes even that much more important, because if you don't have the speed, it's very hard to get yourself to be able to do the things that you need to do. Dale Jr. talks about it all the time. Take every run, take every run. But if your car doesn't have speed and you take every run, you just work your way to the back because people don't go with you and you can't clear people. So it'll be interesting to see if this team does have more speed than they typically do on the plate races.
You talk about a driver who takes every run. That's this guy right here in my mind, Justin Haley. You know, 4 Xfinity Series wins. All 4 came on drafting style racetracks. You see right around the bottom of the racetrack.
Both Haley and Gibbs, of course, full-time Cup Series drivers now. This is a race where if you don't have more than 3 years experience and you haven't run 5 already in the season, you can hop into an Xfinity car as a Cup Series driver and go racing. And they're doing it. And it's a good lap for Haley. Look at that. That was compared to 10th. That gets him into the top 10 and puts him just behind Ty Gibbs.
That puts you P2 right there behind the 19.
All right, Marty, Connecticut representing now with you.
Yeah, can I say this is awkward? Well, I've never actually interviewed you. This is strange. I don't know. You just want to take it over?
This is weird. I don't know. I always wanted to see you on the front stretch. That's when I knew I'd won.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I think of you as like the guy that you most want to see after a race.
That would be Dave tonight.
That would be Dave tonight. Okay. Well, for us on their Spike Light Core Chevy, I'm hoping we have some speed here in qualifying, Marty. I don't know what to expect. I don't think the Xfinity Series ever qualified here. And this track looks visibly grayer than it did in the spring. So I don't know if there's like a ratio of gray to lack of grip, but I would say it maybe has lost some grip. It's really hot, but I think this whole Big Machine Racing team has hopefully done a great job. We had a fast car in the spring. Let's see if we can go show it in qualifying and then bring that in the race.
Is it still too soon to bring up the March race? I mean, it looked like you were in the perfect spot to win this thing.
I know. I really, even the data showed, I think we had a couple miles per hour in the 21. I think we would have got him. But you know what? The best part about that is we get a whole nother chance to do it tonight. So I think, that was unfortunate. It would have been nice to get a win that early, but it's made us a better team to work on all the things behind the scenes we've had to work on. And I think we arrived here a better race team than we were in the spring. And, with that, hopefully we can finish the race forwards as opposed to backwards. I like our chances.
All right, Dave, Parker's going to send you a calendar invite for about 10:35 tonight. That sound okay?
That'll work. I'm on it. I will look for it. The race that you mentioned, Marty, where Parker had a legit shot like he has several times this year, is right here in March.
And Jeff, I thought the 48 was in position, right? So he's outside of the 21, that white car, the bright green 48. And I think he's getting ready to have a pretty big run here and just contacted the left rear corner. Ends up turning the 48 into the door of the 21. I wonder if that couldn't have lined up a little bit more. If that 11, instead of getting into his bumper, could have crossed over and got to the back of his bumper. I wonder if the 48, I think that outside line might have led the way to the start finish.
Yeah, like he said, he certainly would have had a better chance if he was going forward rather than backwards. And so many of these races end up just like that. Everybody battling for position at the start-finish line. We see so many wrecks. Brandon Jones, you just keep waiting for something good to happen. It seems like every race something happens in this race team. They've had a lot of bad luck. Things have not gone well. Hasn't been that they're slow. They just can't seem to finish a race without having some kind of problems.
Good lap for Brandon Jones here at Atlanta. $18 of 38 Xfinity Series cars have taken time at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, getting set for tonight's race, which will be awesome because they'll be running in a large pack, probably all 38 together at certain times. But right now they're trying to get the starting position set. Ty Gibbs has the fastest time. Right now he's looking at being a front row starter. Parker Retzlaff would like some of that here in the 31 car.
Top 10 have to run again. So really the goal in this first round is to be in that top 10, but it is getting pretty tight up top, right?
Whoa.
60, 62, 63, 65. Those first 4 cars throw a blanket over them.
Little wiggle there by Parker.
Yeah, we kind of take Speedway qualifying for granted, but this has been a little bit more of a challenge. We've seen one car quasi spin out and one get loose and slide sideways.
A lot of them getting into 3.
Yeah.
They enter right on that red and white line, and they come off of it about a car width.
Retzlaff moves into the top 10. He may go again, Marty, if he can hang on to that.
Let's chat with Daniel Hemric, Dave, hoping he gets a second run here today as well. So is it kind of an advantage to go later here, so at least know what you're shooting for?
Yeah, I think so. Like we were talking about, Marty, I think it's just theoretical what the lap time should be or we think it's going to be until we actually run. A lot of folks haven't talked about the fact that we've never qualified an Xfinity car here since the repave. So, yeah, it's good to see a couple guys, see how high you can come to the green, see how clean the racetrack is. Hopefully this Circle Chevrolet's fast Xfinity 10G internet, and teammate there sitting second right now, Jay Haley. It's good to have him back in the car this weekend, and yeah, he gave us a good little bar to shoot for, so hopefully we can go do it and just better him a little bit.
Speaking of teammates, Kaulig always plays that game so well at Daytona and Talladega. Can you play that game here at Atlanta and make it work?
I think to a point, yes, but just some runs and stuff form and happen so much faster here, it's a little harder to react and be proactive on trying to get guys linked together and put that run together in a time that doesn't create a huge issue throughout the pack. So, but the key to that, I think, just having good track position and always Kaulig Racing Chevrolets, and especially with our technical alliance with RCR and ECR. Every time we're at these kind of racetracks, we always have speed. So that makes being able to do what you asked a lot easier when you have that much speed.
So, by the way, Jeff, I put him on the job to find out what race pace is versus qualifying pace. He said it's multiple seconds. He knows that. We were talking about that off the air. So the pace tonight will be a lot quicker than it is right now in qualifying.
Yes, it will, and it's going to be fun to watch. You know, these cars, we're already seeing cars sliding around all by themselves, and that's not side by side, you know, going 2 seconds faster. And it's an opportunity race. A lot of guys coming into this race believing they can win it, and that means they're going to be on aggression. And we know what happens when drivers get aggressive on drafting style racetracks.
Blaine Perkins, by the way, put his 0-2 into the top 10 for the moment. As the bumping continues here, Mason Maggio on the line right now in the 0-7. He's waiting to see what happens. Jeremy Clements, who Marty spoke with earlier, takes it down to the white line.
And you saw he ran high coming into the green, just trying to get momentum, get the engine wound up. Now the shortest distance around the racetrack, right around the bottom.
Pretty good lap going right here. He enters. Let's see if he can keep building speed. I mean, right there is got a good shot at this.
Yeah, this should be the fastest lap we've seen today.
How about that? Jeremy Clements to the top.
Good job. He said he could win this race. We've seen him win these races before.
I mean, he's got a crane on his fire suit. That's good to give you some cool points, and that's a pretty good look. You had Caterpillar forever. I mean, you always said Cat. You never had any, like, heavy equipment on the suit?
Nope, just Cat. Nope. No cool logos.
Clements down to the apron. We'll be talking about the apron and all the different lines there after qualifying here. Some new rules that NASCAR is putting in for the weekend will have us talking a little bit of pit road entry once this qualifying is over. So stay tuned, because they will be learning, we will be learning, and it'll be something new this weekend at Atlanta.
Ryan Sieg And the 39 car, the Ford, he likes this new Atlanta when you look at consistency. I mean, Ryan's been in the top 15 all 3 races on this new format since the repave. And we talk about a repave, but it was more than just a repave. They added 4 degrees of banking. It really changed from a, man, that car's dancing around. It's getting my attention. Because you talk about darty, I would define that as darty right there. You know, but added some banking, and it's really gone from what we consider a standard 1.5 mile track where you get out of the gas, and it's all about downforce to a super speedway style of race, as we see Seek comes in 10th.
Just barely clinging to that second round of qualifying.
Had my
Stay there.
attention there, Jeff. I mean,
look at it again, see if we can get your attention again.
It goes down. I don't know if it's the apron doing this or the paint, but that thing is doing anything but chasing the line.
I think some of that is what you spoke about earlier, where the white, red, white lines are on the banking change. I think sometimes he was actually crossing the left front tire over onto the banking, off the banking rather, which has less degrees of grip, because the apron obviously has less degree of banking in it. So I think some of that was simply him crossing over that.
I'll give Dale Jr. the credit, Dave, because we were in a pace car and we ran right on the white line the first lap. Then he moved down kind of to the red line and moved right back up. He goes, okay, the red line's not on the banking. You want to stay on the upper white line. So he had tested it out.
You should have seen Kyle Petty in the back seat of my car. You know, he's not a short guy, and he's crammed in that car.
Well, let's remind folks why.
Oh, right there. That's what I get concerned about, is that they kind of get a little high in, and then as it chases Dak to the bottom, it almost turns them onto the apron.
And Parker Chase will not be able to make it into the top 10. Why are those lines there this weekend, Steve?
Yeah, so because this is super speedway style racing, it's out of bounds. So in the corner where these guys are running them, it's not really a big issue. Nobody's going to go down to the flat to make a pass. Let's take another look. So it goes in the corner, and the car kind of tracks off the line. Then it turns, Jeff, and it gets all the way over that red line, and that's where it looks like it really upsets the car.
Yeah, he's just off of the banking onto the apron doing that. All the way right there. He is literally on the apron. And why, right? So the reason why is because you heard a couple of the drivers talk about, yes, they say the driver doesn't matter, but the driver does matter. And Brandon Jones said the driver can have an impact in what happens with your car. Well, you want to make it as short as you can around the racetrack. So the shortest way is right on that line, and it's hard to see the apron change. It's just hard to know it until you get down there.
It's a driver who's had great success on the new Atlanta, Riley Herbst.
So you asked why. Well, here's the real reason. You see where this 98 is. That line to his left, that's out of bounds. And that's what's going to make this race a whole lot safer, because this backstretch would become way too wide and funneling you into a corner. And this front stretch, watch this 98 right here. Look to his left. Look at all of that pavement. These guys would be all over that pavement trying to make passes. So it's going to be enforced just like it goes at Daytona and Talladega, as Herbst goes to the top of the board.
32-42.
Good lap for Herbst. So, you know, below there, and we asked what is out of bounds. Your left side tires below the second white line. So your left side tires completely crossing all 3 lines, and then you're clearly out of bounds.
And I like the line that he ran because he was a little bit off of the lines, and his car wasn't moving around as much, which means he wasn't having to put as much wheel input into it. So not dragging the car down. He wasn't 100% the shortest way around the racetrack, but it was the smoothest way around the racetrack. See Jeb right here. He's got his hand out the window. I had spent some time with Jeb last night. He said he would not do that here because he thought he had his hands full, but here he is. Put a helmet on the driver, and they just go right back to doing it. They do that at Daytona and Talladega. They're trying to direct the air around the spoiler, essentially, to make the car go faster. Jeb's a really good racer on these racetracks. Constantly puts himself in position to win them.
Has won them.
So it also looks, to your point about driving lines, that really paid it off for me. Is I thought Jeb held a very consistent wheel, and the car didn't track the same arc as the white and red line. Like almost the white and red line isn't the perfect arc of the corner, right? Like he made the car make an arc versus chasing that white line up and down. What does the driver of the 7 have to say about all that, Marty?
Let's chat with him. He's been watching this qualifying session. We're also talking about the chaos that is racing here at Atlanta. What makes the degree of difficulty so tough here racing now in this new configuration?
Well, you know, obviously this is more like a super speedway than it is a typical 1.5 miles, but it's also still a 1.5 miles, and the radius of the corners is ultra tight. It is different. I mean, we spoke off camera, but you know, the ability to go 3 wide is potentially there, but you really wouldn't want to race there. And I think it comes down to give and take. You know, we're in a day and time where being aggressive is obviously the name of the game, and this racetrack is a lot more about give and take, and you're really not safe anywhere. You can be up front, you can be in the back, you can be in the middle of the pack, and anything can happen. But our Hellman's Camaro looks really good. Yeah. We're hoping to catch one of these clouds, and you know, obviously the goal is to always be as fast as Xfinity 10G, but the guys back at the shop have been working their tails off to make sure we got speed, but as we talked about beforehand, drivability is going to be key. I think to have a good balance is going to be super important today. So, you know, it may not qualify as good as we want, but I think in the race we'll be in good shape.
A little racing at night, maybe open it up for 3 wide?
Potentially. You know, the color of the surface, the condition of the racetrack is obviously a lot more degraded than it was the last time we were here. It's a lot hotter, you know, so it's going to make a big difference. But, you know, we're gonna let the race come to us. And, you know, we crashed out before we needed to earlier this spring, and I got to get to the end so we know what we got to maybe go for a shot at a win.
So, Jeff, every driver I talked to, thanks, Justin, has been saying the lighter surface is what they're noticing. So what do they notice when they're seeing that lighter surface versus when they were here in March?
What they're seeing is just less grip. As the sun beats on this racetrack, it just takes grip away from it compared to when it's brand new asphalt. And so the big concern there, Marty, is there is no practice. There was not an opportunity to run around other cars in race condition. This is the only track time they've got, and you don't know how your car is going to drive. So what Justin was saying was, hey, we think it's going to drive worse because the conditions of the racetrack have deteriorated. So we might dial a little bit back. It might not qualify great. We might pull some speed back by putting some downforce in the car so it drives better in race condition so he can do with it what he wants to do. He wouldn't have made that decision coming here if it was cold, if it was a nighttime cold race, because the grip would be in the track. But they're just concerned about how much the track grip, where that is as Sam Mayer goes to the top.
You're watching two of the 3 teammates to Justin Allgaier put their cars.
That's probably one of my better speedway cues.
Into the top 10. That was Sam Mayer on the radio. He's at the top. Josh Berry now 4th. Both trying to advance to the 2nd round of qualifying here for the Xfinity Series.
And a little bit of a cloud came over, and while I don't think that helps, you know, handling as much at a place like Indianapolis or some of those other higher speed tracks that we've seen in years past, it probably might help the front tires just track a little bit better, right? Hold the wheel a little bit straighter. Although Sam said it was one of his better qualifying runs. So I'm going to have to catch him next week and have him explain to me the bad ones. I don't know. You know, what made this one special? Was it wiggling the wheel? Was it his shift points? What did he think that he did correct?
Casgarala on track now for Sam Hunt Racing. They have an association, close association with Joe Gibbs Racing, and another chance for a Toyota Supra to shine.
Well, you saw in that Sam Mayer lap, I saw 169 miles an hour on the back straightaway. You see right here, only up to 166, 67. And you see it with the lap time comparison. I mean, he's going to be a big chunk off Sam Mayer.
Where will it put Gralla overall? It is going to be outside the top 10. Riley Herbst looking good. Coming up, Cole Custer. Be sure to download the official app of NASCAR. It allows you to follow race action with free live scoring in-car cameras and a radio broadcast. You can also upgrade to premium for full access to driver audio channels and an ad-free experience. Search NASCAR in your app store and start a free trial today. If you had that premium service, Jeff Burton, you would have heard Sam Mayer talking about that was his best qualifying effort so far on a track like this.
Sounds great.
Parker Kligerman, our colleague at times, the guy we call in the race at times. He will take the 48 car straight to the bottom on his green lap. Can he put it in the top 10 and go on to round 2?
Looking at that max speed, he's up around what we saw out of Sam Mayer. We see 170 miles an hour out of this 48.
Yeah, this should be a good lap. That car bouncing around, Steve. They've got it pulled down, but it isn't moving around side to side.
Just inside. Yep. they're just so close. I mean, I know the front two are out there in low 40s, but I mean, fifth.
Big vibration too.
Oh no. No practice, so you heard a big vibration. That's always a concern for a team. That's your kind of your fear. Is it just a tire out of balance? Is it something with the engine, something with the drive line? You know, even if you do want to swap or maybe rotate the drive shaft, you're not going to get another lap until the race. So, and that's only if NASCAR is going to allow you to do it.
Yeah, and then if they won't, then you have to start in the back. And everybody's talked about how important track position is, so you'd hate to give up track position unless you absolutely had to.
Keep an eye on that as he's currently in position to go to round 2, but who's to say once they sort of check things over. Sheldon Creed will try to bump out Anthony Alfredo, currently on the bubble.
Yeah, and you see the speed out of this RCR entry. Had a conversation with some of the engine folks from RCR, and they were talking about super speedway racing, how it's become more difficult, and I joked with them. I said, well, that's because you have like half the field. And you know, it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but the truth is there are a lot of RCR leased engines in this field. RCR very well known for their speed, as you see Creed proves it with a 32.19, a monster lap. So you just have to, you know, understand that the more of those engines you lease, the more you have to race against.
Marty Sam Mayer just got booted with a really outstanding lap, but he'll still be in round 2.
I want him to impersonate the face he just made when the 2 ran. Go ahead and do that to camera. What was it? You're like, holy smokes, what a lap. But you said on the radio after your lap, my best effort at a restrictor plate qualifying. Why?
I think I just finally put like a full lap together, getting off pit road, making sure I don't drag the splitter on the apron, like kind of the basic stuff, really putting it all together. But I mean, we just got our butts handed to us right there on that lap. But our car still has a fast Xfinity 10G. I'm not worried about it. I think we're going to race really, really well. I think we're in the second round already, so that's all that really matters. That's all we wanted, and we're going to go out and rip another one.
There you go, Jeff. That's validation, right? There's more to it maybe than people give credit for the driver.
Well, that's right. The drivers are working on it. Any little thing you can do, you have to take accountability for it. And you heard from him, he's been working on it. He had some things he thought he could do better. I know he's been working with his team, and that's what he went and did. He executed it.
Another RCR-affiliated driver, Daniel Hemric. Kaulig Racing gets their motors from that group, and he's quick, too.
I feel like Daniel Hemric, the last 2 cars we just saw go out, I feel like Sheldon Creed is a very aggressive race car driver. He's going to be pushing to make something happen tonight. He's obviously got a fast car. Daniel Hemric, I feel like he needs some wins. He needs to get some things going his way, and I think he views this as an opportunity too. So both of those guys will be super aggressive tonight.
We saw the 25 car of Brett Moffitt up here on screen, and Steve, you pointed at it right away.
This is the driver I have my eye on. I think Brett is coming off a great run from the streets of Chicago a week ago inside the top 5. I think he ended up 4th in that race. You know, top 15, 4 weeks in a row. A smaller team getting it off the ground, kind of getting its feet wet in the Xfinity Series. And I just think Brett comes to mind as one of those drivers that's willing to do whatever it takes, has a lot more experience than people realize. He's the type, I don't think he's going to have the raw speed as you're seeing here in qualifying of perhaps a Creed or a Sam Mayer that we just heard from. But he's kind of like that Parker Kligerman style, right? I just think Brett, if he gets a little fortunate, misses a few wrecks, he could be around towards the end. Plus the white wheels has got to give him a little bit of an advantage. Jeff, I know you're a huge fan of the white wheels, but
there's 2 tenths and paint those things black.
So Brett Moffitt. And he said it drove fine.
Racetrack a little bit with side skirts, but nothing hard.
So look, I'd love to be Creed 32.19, of course. Love to be anyone inside the top 10. But if you aren't going to have raw speed, don't drive bad and be slow. Like, at least have something in your corner, right? I know it sounds silly, but it drove fine. Okay, great. Well, then, if this turns into an absolute sprint of speed, we might not have the best type of car here. But if handling does become an issue, every driver's talked about the color of the track. They've all talked about this magical grip. If grip's your drinking word, you may not make the green flag. It's so, you know, I like the idea that he has confidence that his car at least drove well.
And I know, Steve, these wrecks are hard to avoid. But if your car drives one, you got some confidence in it, you can make little jukes and jives and miss stuff.
You can miss stuff. You can also create opportunity. Because just because a car is fast, if Jeff's out there and he's fast and his car is great, but it is on the edge of control, and I am, with the draft, to be able to get into his space, as we see Sammy Smith jump to second on the time chart. If I can get close enough to him in his space, I can make his car drive so bad that he has to get out of the gas. And I can assure you, the fastest car out here, if you get out of the gas, you are instantly slower than the car that's wide open.
The other thing about a good handling car, Dave, is that the decisions that you make to win this race happen in an instant. Like, you have to you see something happen, and you have to respond to that immediately. The guy that's driving the car that has the confidence to make that move at any given time, he now is on full offense all the time. When you have to check yourself, can I go into that hole without spinning this thing out? Will my car take it? That takes some aggression out. So that's what, when drivers talk about, I want a good handling car at a place like Atlanta, Daytona, Talladega, that's what they're talking about. It's just that stability to be able to make those quick second decisions without having to think about it.
You saw Sammy Smith in the Joe Gibbs Toyota in the 18 car. This is Chandler Smith, no relation, in the 16 for Kaulig Racing. This Chevrolet Camaro has been good this year, and Chandler's been a good wheelman.
Yeah, another Georgia driver. Talking Rock, Georgia. Has Georgia roofing on the hood of it. It's a good-looking car. Kaulig Racing, all their equipment always looks good. I'm going to give them credit. Not only fast, I like the schemes.
And as you said, fast. Look at that.
Yeah, we expect these Kaulig cars.
I mean, right there. We'll talk about it when you get here. Good job.
Almost every plate race, those Kaulig cars have a shot to win. I mean, not like this guy.
Oh, full RCR car. Austin Hill with the horsepower, with the handling, and Jeff with the know-how. How does he do it?
Yeah, he's so good at it. I mean, if you look at the number of wins that he has on these draft and racetracks, it's crazy. And he just puts himself in position. And he's very aggressive, gets track position, and then he blocks and takes lanes up and does everything he can to never give that track position up.
So you're saying he's stubborn in a good way?
You have to be.
That's the only way for a race car driver to be. And if you're going to be good, you know, in your home state for both you and your sponsor. That's what Austin Hill has done. I mean, look at this. It's not just here, right? It's Atlanta and Daytona, but Austin Hill, a Georgia native. And Bennett Trucking, also a local partner, which is on this car a lot, but this is their home race.
We're comparing him to Justin Haley's number 10 car in 10th position. He's well ahead of that, trying to get to round 2 of qualifying for tonight's race.
Right up there with his teammate. RCR cars 1-2, and a 32-19 and a 32-21. So Dave, you know, working in an organization, used to put 4 cars out there week and every week with Hemric Motorsports. You always want to be fast, but almost more important than fast is you all want all 4 cars to be close on speed. Because if you have an outlier, the owner and the boss wants to know why one's fast and one's slow. So congratulations so far. Still got a round to go, but well done for RCR, first and second. You see him slowing that thing down by using the gears.
Justin Allgaier on track now, one of 4 junior motorsports cars. I'd like to see them all together right now. Sam Mayer carrying the flag for that team. Josh Berry also in the top 10. Let's see where Justin can clock in.
Justin is such an important part of this race series. He's still young, but he's been racing for a long time, and he provides a lot of leadership for some of the younger guys. Justin does it the right way. He's aggressive. Justin gets after it. You watch him on restarts, he is pushing hard, but he's clean. And he races hard, he's clean. He asks and demands to be raced respectfully. He's ended up 12th right there. He's just such an important part. He's a winner. And people look up to him, and it's great for young drivers to have somebody like him in this series.
So Justin will not make the second round. Cole Custer will be trying to after a pole run last week on the streets of Chicago, and he led early and often.
Yeah, that pole run turned into dominating the race when it ended up being weather shortened. For that reason, Cole Custer was the only one to lead, and it was impressive to see him navigate the course. There was a lot of trouble on that 12-turn race course. We saw the Cup guys struggle, the Xfinity guys struggle, and then the rains came. And I can assure you, if someone that was there, they came in droves, inches and inches of rain.
Here's the alternate victory lane that we spoke in as he took the trophy and put another W on his resume.
You're excited. Dale Jr. and I in the pre-race are going to spend a little bit of time with Cole Custer later today. I can't wait to talk to him. You know, remember, he was in the Cup Series for several years and kind of got demoted back to the Xfinity Series. He's here to prove to the world that he can do it in the Cup Series. And what has he done? He sat on 4 poles and won 2 races. We're not halfway through the season yet. So Cole Custer showing people, yes, he does know how to win races.
That will be good for 9th. That will put him into the 2nd round.
Yeah, with only 1 to qualify, he knows he's locked. Now the question is Hemric, the guy sitting in 10th with 1 car left to go. It's Creed, currently P1. Unfortunately, these times get erased. Doesn't matter where you were in the first round. Anywhere in the top 10, you have to run again.
Will it be Creed or will it be John Hunter Nemechek? As you point out, Nemechek just wants to be top 10 so he can move on to round 2 and then qualify for the pole.
Well, we have one other Joe Gibbs car that is in the top 10, Sammy Smith. Ty Gibbs is not. He's in 11th. So they probably, you know, right there on the cusp if you look at those 2 cars. So it's a good chance John Hunter gets himself in the top 10 right here.
Almost 169 miles an hour turning into turn 1. We'll see how much speed is zapped out of the car. Very little rolling speed. Exits the corner at 166. Quickly starts gaining speed. You see Daniel Hemric looking on. He is not going to like what he's seeing as John Hunter continues to gain time compared to Hemric. John
Just
Hunter
painting that white line, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think this lap is going to be pretty close to the top 4.
Nemechek, he'll be in the top 10. It will be 4th. Hemric has bumped out. And we will step away and get ready for round 2. Find out who is on the pole for tonight's race at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Tomorrow, baseball from the nation's capital. MLB Sunday leadoff. We'll have the AL West leading Texas Rangers visiting the Washington Nationals. Live 11:30 a.m. Eastern, exclusively on Peacock. Steve, Texas will be the first game on Tuesday, by the way, for the All-Star game. The first team to have 5 position players since the Big Red Machine back in 1976, the Cincinnati Reds.
Oh, man, I like that.
Yeah.
Cincinnati Reds.
A lot of good baseball coming up. Round 2 about to get going for pole position here at Atlanta. These are the drivers who will start 11 through 38.
Well, the first 4 names got to be favorites to watch. Hemric, Gibbs, Haley, and Allgaier didn't make the top 10 in qualifying, but they're going to push early. You see Josh Williams, Parker Kligerman back there in 17th.
Here we go, the top 30. Jeff Burton, Blaine Perkins, Brian Sieg in that group there.
Steve, you mentioned Brett Moffitt being a guy to keep your eye on. He's coming from 27th.
Going to work hard for back there. Get a little fortunate. Well, you mentioned, hey, what's your strategy? I think if you're on this page or the 3rd page for sure, take it a little bit easy, right? If you're back here, if you're Kaz Gralla, just take a deep breath, kind of let the things happen in front of you.
And I think you just got to pick them up one at a time. Kind of like Sheldon Creed did in qualifying, Marty. 1 lap, 1 pole. Oh, not pole yet, but a top 10 run.
Don't give it to him yet, Dave.
Nope.
He's got to go out and do it again. Let's chat with him. Impressive run. I guess anytime you get in an RCR car, do you expect to be that quick, though, over everybody else, Sheldon?
No, I mean, the guys at RCR just do an incredible job building our speedway cars. And, you know, great to have a fast wheeling Chevrolet Camaro. And I don't know. It seems we're having some type of drivetrain issue, transmission, rear gear. I don't know exactly what we have going on. But
are you going to be able to make the next lap?
I don't think so, which is disappointing for how fast our cars are. But you know, at least we'll have a teammate in the back with us, and we'll be up there by the end of stage 1.
There you go. And so, Steve, I'm going to have Brad, my camera guy, walk over here. It's one of the more unusual things I've heard of, and I don't know if you'll have an answer either. They're kind of scratching their heads. You see Danny Lawrence and Chris Rice here kind of chatting about it. And what happens is when the car is in neutral, as soon as they push it, it pops into gear on its own. Sheldon had trouble leaving pit road actually for his qualifying lap, and so they do not have any idea why it's happening or what's happening. So that's a new one to me. I don't know if you've heard of that one before or not.
I've heard of automatic transmission, Steve, but that's ridiculous.
So I've heard him popping out of gear. I haven't heard him as not want to fall in gear as much, but see RC down there, Richard Childress. But let's listen to onboard of the 21 after qualifying. The drivers are trying to not use the brakes, so listen to this. He's going to finish his lap, and then he wants to try to slow this car down without stepping on the brake pedal, so he uses the gearing. So just listen to what the driver does after the lap. Engine off.
Coasting out of gear.
Here in a minute. So he gets to a speed that he thinks is right there. You hear how abruptly that thing was back in gear, and we had an in-car when he was doing it, and it seemed like he was fighting the handle, Jeff. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be the guy to jinx the situation, but you see some pretty animated movements, and it's not as simple as, hey, we have a simple transmission issue. That's something that they're dealing with.
The road crews with Jordan Taylor. The same thing as he downshift. He kept
here, Chris Rice, president of Kaulig Racing, there with Richard Childress in the cowboy hat. Give you one more look at this, Steve. One more listen to it, if you will.
Yeah, so let's ride on board and watch. So we know he lifts. He's going to reach up. Okay, neutral. Talking to the crew with his right hand. Turn the power back on. Now he's going to put it in gear and let the clutch out. It's just a lot of, it doesn't seem normal to me, Jeff. Like,
yeah, you see right there, he's trying to.
Like, he doesn't know if it's in second, trying to find third, or trying to find fourth.
That was in a much lower gear than he thought, right, Jeff? That's why the wheel shook in his hand.
Yeah, well, he just fired. What happened there was he had the ignition switch on, and it fired, and when it fired, the power steering started working. Before, without the engine running, there's no power steering, so he's got a lot of pressure put on it. The engine fired, and then it just immediately turned really easily.
Go ahead, Marty.
Just checking in with Jeff Stankiewicz, and they are going to try and run Sheldon Creed. As he told me, I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to go try and run. But yeah, one of the more bizarre problems I've seen down here with a car wanting to pop itself into gear.
The two fastest cars in round one of qualifying with mechanical issues, or do they have? We'll find out when we come back to Atlanta. Here's what's coming up today on USA Network. NASCAR America is next, followed by Cup Series qualifying, countdown to green, and then you are not going to want to miss Xfinity Series racing as this car, the 2 car, and his teammate, the 21, are being pushed behind the wall. They'll be starting at the rear of the field. Then tomorrow, the Sunday ticket here in Atlanta, countdown to green at 6:30 p.m. 7 o'clock Cup Series racing, and then NASCAR America post-race. 2 night races in a row here at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. And as mentioned, Richard Childress's cars going to the back of the field for the Xfinity race after they diagnosed the problems in the transmission, and they will be fighting their way to the front. You will not want to miss it tonight at 8.
All right, so look, I mean, this is a huge story, right? Austin Hill's won the last 2 races here. There's his teammate Sheldon Creed. Let's go back to his qualifying because we have an in-car camera. Nothing out of the blue as far as drivers letting their foot out with the car in gear. But Jeff, you've done this your whole life. So has an Austin Hill. There seems to be some confusion between 3rd and 4th gear, like something feels amiss to this driver.
Yeah, I feel like right now everything's normal.
Good on handling there.
He's just talking about what the car is doing. Now is when the problem starts.
Easy on your brakes here.
Now he's trying to figure out what gear am I in? What is happening? And you can hear he'll let out the clutch here in just a second.
It's like he doesn't feel great. It's like he doesn't feel great. There's the 3rd gear. Then he lets the clutch out. So now the car gets back to pit road. And then while on pit road, NASCAR allows one of the mechanics, Tim Latiga, longtime mechanic at RCR, Danny Lawrence, team manager at the Xfinity shop now, was at the engine shop for years, and there's a discussion. You can see this is a gentleman who warms these cars up all the time, probably drives them on the chassis down, and he knows that a car won't go, so he reaches up, he bumps the starter to kind of turn the motor over, and then it still either won't roll in neutral or won't go in gear. Marty, transmission issues on both RCR cars.
Yeah, let's chat with Austin Hill, who can dissect all of that for us. So you got to watch all of that, so walk us through what happened there.
Well, I ran my lap like I always do, and like on the super speedways, I'll put it in neutral, shut it off, coast for a little bit, and then I'll go to grab third and just kind of let it coast down to try to stay off the brake pedal to not have as much friction, so when we go back out, we can turn a good lap. I went to go grab third, and I'm like, where, you know, I couldn't find where third was, and let out the clutch, and like third wasn't there. It felt like it was in neutral. So then I got down in the middle of 3 and 4, and I'm like, all right, well, let me try second. And I grabbed second, and I about spun out. Like you see where I catch the car because it goes into gear. And then we get down into pit road, and I put it out of second, got it into neutral, and neutral was like stuck in gear for some reason. So the only way the car would roll just a second ago is if you press the clutch in, and still couldn't get it in. Like third just actually wasn't there. So it's a bummer. It looked like the two had the same issue, so Sheldon and I both will be in the back. But you know, I mean, I think we have plenty of time to get up front. We have some really fast Bennett Chevrolets with RCR and ECR engines, so hopefully we can put on a show for everyone.
So this may be something you don't know, but is this a transmission package, the only package you have here, or do you have something different you can put in the car that's maybe something you've run in the past?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I don't really know exactly where we're at for transmission stuff. I don't know if our backup transmission is the same exact style as this one, so you know, I'm just going to jump in the car. Hopefully the transmission shifts and all for me once we get our transmission switched over, and we can just drive through the field, put on a show, and stay out of all the melee while we're trying to come up front.
We'll see what happens tonight, trying to win his third straight here at Atlanta. But, man, I tell you what, one of the crazier things I've seen on pit road, Dave.
Amazing now, and only 8 will be going for the pole.
And so, Dave, look, you don't have the fastest 2 cars at a track where you run wide open without looking at every nut and bolt that takes aerodynamic drag and steals horsepower from the car. So these transmissions could be rock solid like you would have run a week ago at the street course of Chicago, but that transmission is going to take a lot of horsepower out of the car. Everything is going to be much lighter here. Obviously, they have something that has gone amiss. We talked about the 2 cars running the same speed. Well, good and bad is it's gone amiss with both cars, so now it comes down to a great question by Marty. I'm sure with all the RCR Alliance, they'll have other options, but it'll be interesting to check in with the team in a little bit, Jeff, to see if they went to something the same or if they had a plan B in the trailer.
It's fascinating to me that they both failed that quickly.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this is RCR. This is Richard Childress Racing. He is a stickler on reliability, and it's amazing to me that you could have 2 transmissions, clutches, shifters, whatever's happening here fail after 1 lap. You know, they ran them on the chassis dyno. So it's just very unusual.
And so you heard Austin say, hey, I don't want to get on the brake so I can run better the second time. Well, this is why. Cole Custer ran a 32.5, and now he's run a 32.4. You see a brand new transmission being carried over. So you have to pull the exhaust down, side skirts have to come down, maybe some heat shielding. It's not a timely change. They will have no problem at all making the race. You know, this is something that you've practiced. It'll happen very quickly. Never makes you feel good when you have the whole drive line apart before you go on the racetrack.
Dave Burns, Steve Letarte, Marty Snyder on pit road, and Jeff Burton, former Richard Childress Racing driver, who knows about that reliability, could count on it week to week in the Cup Series, and is going to see now that team scramble to get those drivers ready for tonight's action.
See if Josh Berry can find the same sort of pickup that Cole Custer. Remember, these are from slowest to fastest, minus the 2 fastest that are in the garage.
Yeah, and you never really know if you're going to go faster or slower. You typically would think you would go a little bit faster because now you have heat in the rear end, you have heat in the transmission, all that stuff rolls better, and bearings, wheel bearings, all that stuff seems like the second run has a little bit more speed in it.
Yeah, years ago at Daytona, you had heaters for heaters for heaters. Everything in the world would be heated up. But all that's gone away by rules. You know, if it's the same for everyone, and you have to race this equipment, it isn't qualifying only, so it's a little bit different feel.
Shelf full of fluids. What else? You had so much stuff going on.
Labels that had like special part numbers, so nobody even knew what brand it was. Dude, Josh Berry does pick up almost the same exact amount as Cole Custer, just a touch more. So a good lap for the 8.
Jeremy Clements on track now. This driver, very, very good to get through to round 2. And family still building their own motors and seeing what they can do here tonight.
Well, and I think that's, so if you're Jeremy Clements, right, it had to be demoralizing to see the speed of those RCR cars, but now there's been a little bit of an issue. Right, so instantly there's a little more energy for everyone else inside the top 10. You saw what was the Sam Mayer face. It was, oh my goodness, I can't believe that's what just happened. But now in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, that part has to go away. Now they're not going to be as good as they were. Maybe we found a little advantage.
Yeah, it's not just that they're starting in the back. It's that down on pit road, they're all thinking, oh yeah, they had some trick going on. Now they lost it.
Yep.
Of course, they'll both finish first and second tonight, and they'll say, there you go. But that's exactly what the competitors are thinking.
Clements across the line, and regardless of where he ends up, Steve, this will be his best start of 2023.
Well, Jeremy Clements and this team just continues to impress, right? Every year we see more big organizations come in, too. We've seen Kaulig join the likes of the Xfinity Series. I'm talking over many, many years. But Jeremy Clements just continues to be one of those smaller teams that knocks right on the door of those big organizations. And once again, he's got a crane on his fire suit. So, I mean, listen. My father-in-law was a crane operator growing up, so if I don't keep promoting that crane, then I'm going to be in trouble when I go home.
Cool factor. The cool factor. Riley Herbst has been cool at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. He's on track now, Marty.
I was just going to joke. You guys were talking about the energy that the rest of the top 10 has, right? Well, Steve, guess how many crew chiefs have walked up to me since that happened? Said, now, what exactly happened with the 2 and the 21? Everyone down here on pit road talking about it, and I'm sure all those minds are working right now to go, what do they have?
Well, 2 things, right? What did they have? And now maybe you have a little bit of glimpse of where you need to go to work. I know it didn't work for RCR, but now if you're another team at these speedways, or you're thinking, man, this is an area we haven't really looked at in the last few years, maybe we need to kind of turn that leaf back over, as Riley Herbst is knocking on the door of the fastest time here.
Yeah, it's a good lap by Riley. You know, I think about Riley Herbst and, you know, Nashville a few weeks ago, how fast he was. Had some problems, a couple problems during the race, wasn't able to execute, but they had winning pace. And I just feel like this team and driver, they're right on the verge of having a breakthrough win. Tonight could be the night. He's going to have a good starting position.
That Nashville race saw a change of leadership for the 98 crew. Crew chief got promoted up into the Cup Series, and Riley said the transition had been challenging with his new crew chief. Looks like this weekend so far, they are meeting that challenge strong.
Well, you mentioned, you know, we talk a lot about practice for car prep and driver, but driver-crew chief relationship, those are some of the things that you just take for granted what practice does. The ups and downs of practice, the emotion of practice, you kind of forge that relationship. And without that track time, it takes more weeks and more time away from the racetrack to get used to new people.
Sam Mayer will try to back up what he quoted on the radio as one of his best performances on a track like this in qualifying. Told Marty he just did everything right. Let's see what he can do here. Oh, trending in the right direction. Can it get down to the green?
Oh, it's so close. Spent some time with his crew chief, Marty Lindley, this morning. Marty said his team's got speed. They just need to quit making mistakes.
Oh, the exact same time. That's right, Dave. The exact same time between the 8 and the 1.
bud. 33.
Wow.
And so it'll be determined by owner points if that is the top time, I am told. Now, if someone can eclipse that, it doesn't really matter anymore.
I'm willing to claim it's not going to be the top time.
All right.
Everybody's going a little faster, and I've seen, I actually think that the next 3 cars will all be faster. Sammy Smith, John Hunter, and Chandler Smith. I don't know why any of them wouldn't find the speed that these others have found in a rerun.
You mentioned the importance of teams having similar speed of race cars. Well,
can't argue there, can you?
There you go, Junior. You've got 2 cars that ran the exact same speed.
That's right. That's right. Wherever you're at listening, that's a celebration.
Sammy Smith, he was quick in round number 1. See what this youngster can do for Joe Gibbs Racing.
I mean, look how close it is. I mean, it's amazing to me. It's a completely different manufacturer, a completely different chassis. Like and they're right there on top of each other on speed. Always fascinates me how good these teams are.
Trending in the green beyond tying the top speed. Steve, you're going to be right here, and Smith will go to the top.
Yeah, Smith, a 32,
All right, T1 right now.
30. Basically a 10th. That's what we've seen for pickups. So if they're going to keep picking up a 10th, and John Hunter's going to be close to a 20, We'll see if that trend continues. One good thing for a little bit of the repeatability is there's a little bit of wind today, but unlike those gusty days at Daytona, plus I think on the mile-and-a-half track, the wind has a little less to do with it, right? The back straightaway is much shorter than at Talladega and Daytona, where you think the wind would affect you the most. That's going to be that's at least my strategy. Yeah, it's my theory. Nobody can prove it wrong at this point. It's the first time they've qualified.
That's right.
Theory can't be proven wrong.
Need some data first.
See Hunter Nemechek, he's gained a tremendous amount of confidence in the racetrack being clean. He came to the green flag all the way against the wall. There was some concern about that. The track looked a little dirty when qualifying started.
I want to give the hand to Mobil 1 in creating a great looking paint scheme. Patriotic, a little red, white, and blue. Goes with their logos.
And a fine racing lubricant, Steve, you might say as well.
Yes.
And trending in the green and continuing to go that way.
Really good lap.
3 other cars to go after Nemechek, but for now, Hunter Nemechek puts the 20 car up top.
All right.
P1.
So for Chandler Smith,
one other
out of the Kaulig entry, for him to be the fastest car instead of the pole, he would have to run faster than he ran in the first round. He was a .25 versus Nemechek's .238 currently, so he needs to find the same average pickup we've seen.
And if you're just joining us, and apparently I am, Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed will not be taking qualifying laps. So this is it. Chandler Smith, can he go to the pole, or will it be Hunter Nemechek?
Much like John Hunter, Jeff, to your point, we didn't see this above the last dotted line in the first round.
Yeah, way up there.
So now you think the Cup cars, which will be coming up here in a little bit, will we see the same sort of wide, arc coming to the green?
I would think so. They just built a lot of confidence. See right there, he came to the green flag really well. Oh, he's looking good.
Chandler Smith with a good lap. I was walking on pit road at Nashville and went to speak to the young man, and he introduced himself, and his level of respect made me feel old, I will admit. I was waiting for him to cut up with me, but just a very polite, well-spoken driver, super talented behind the wheel, and a monster lap right here, easily going to be on the pole.
Georgia driver to the pole at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Chandler Smith, number 1, taking the field to the green here later tonight. We'll talk to him when we come back. Back at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, that is Chandler Smith. He will be on pole for tonight's action here at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. What a nice run for him. Makes it through to round number 2 and then has the best lap of 8 cars.
Well, yeah, because you see back there, so you see Chandler Smith, Hunter Nemechek, that's Kaulig Racing, and Joe Gibbs Racing on the front row. RCR, though, 9th and 10th, they moved on to this round, but were unable to make a lap. So they'll get 9th and 10th qualifying position effort, but they'll have to start on the final row of the race.
And great speed by the Toyotas. The Toyotas, in my eyes, have struggled on plate races. They just haven't had a lot of wins, hadn't had a consistency, but you got 2 of them in the top 3. So, and 2 really good race car drivers. They got a good shot.
Look at the mix. You mentioned it, right? Ford, Toyota, Chevy. We kind of have a whole mix. And now we're going to see pit road practice. This
something completely different, Steve.
So, Dave, with the reconfiguration here at Atlanta, it became clear that if you had to pit under green, you would come around this corner right here. You would have to get off the gas right here on the banking and somehow make a left-hand corner when the pack is coming. There's no way that would have worked. So NASCAR came up with this idea to move the pit road entry to the end of the back straightaway. That's how it was in the spring. What that did do is make perhaps the longest pit road we've ever seen in our life, 45 miles an hour. So for this race, under caution, same thing. Long pit road, 45 miles an hour. But under green flag, the first basically third of pit road, which is on the aprons of 3 and 4, you can run 90 miles an hour. So from right here, this orange box, all the way around 3 and 4 on the apron, 90 miles an hour. And then when you get to the regular pit road, you have to go down to 45 miles an hour. Teams were losing multiple laps. I like this idea. It's a little creative. We'll see how it goes. You see right there, 90 miles an hour. He's going to slow to 45. Mason, that's going to be close. He might have gave it back a little bit in the first segment.
But Steve, there are no speedometers in these race cars.
There are not, but there's tacks and some yellow and red lights. And it's going to be interesting to see how these 4 speeds unlike the Cup cars with 5 speeds, set it, Jeff, whether it's second or third gear, and then what you do.
Well, and probably what you have to do, you're reading your RPMs on the tachometer, right? And so probably what the drivers are going to have to do is actually have 3 marks, because are you in third gear or are you in second gear running 90 miles an hour on the apron? Of course, 90 means 95 because you're speeding if you go 5 miles an hour over 90. So some drivers actually had to put 3 marks, 1 mark for the 45 mile an hour area, which will be in second gear, but are you in second or third gear at 90 miles an hour? So you had to put a mark in case you were in third gear and a mark in case you were in second gear. So the workload just went up on green flag pit stops. Now look, in the Xfinity Series, we shouldn't see any green flag stops unless something happens, because the way the stages map out, you're going to have to save a little bit of fuel in that last stage, but you should be able to make it. So unless you have a problem, you shouldn't see a green flag stop tonight.
Moments ago, Marty, Chandler Smith clocked the fastest time in qualifying for tonight's race.
Yeah, before we dive too deep into the pit stop practice, let's congratulate him. And I think fitting, Dave, that the car is parked here on the backstretch of the quarter mile where you spent so many nights here on Thursday Night Thunder running Legends and Bandos. How significant is it for you to win your hometown pole?
No, that's really cool. We're sitting here standing on the backstretch, like you said, of this little quarter mile. I remember one of the first times I came out here in a Bandolero. My crew chief / mentor was Rusty Clanton, and we came out here and he set up a bunch of cones all the way down this back straightaway to show me where I needed to turn in at and stuff. And that's the first guy that ever taught me arcing a race car is usually faster than just driving in straight. So a lot of those fundamentals were learned right here at Atlanta Motor Speedway on this quarter mile, which is really cool. Another thing that's really cool is how fast this Roofing Georgia number 16 Chevy Camaro is fast today. It's as fast as Xfinity 10G, and I'm excited. Got a hometown company on the hood today is the primary, and it's really cool. I know they're on the backstretch having a lot of fun, probably drinking a lot of beer right now. So y'all have fun back there, and I look forward to seeing you guys later.
Kaulig Racing, Chandler Smith, the hometown kid, starts from the pole here at AMS tonight, Dave.
And Marty, he will be one of the latter cars to go out and try out this new pit road speed. They're sending them out in little groups of 3, I think it was. NASCAR will do that just so they're not all cluttered on the racetrack and they can go through this one time.
Can I just say how slow 90 miles an hour looks? I mean, if you were standing, think about if you were standing next to a highway and a car flew by you at 90 mile an hour, what that would look and feel like. But we've become so accustomed to seeing cars going 170 miles an hour. 90 actually looks slow.
So let's just take you through the whole process. You understand now that the entry is on the backstretch. There's a bunch of things to point out. So as we see Brandon Jones come out, we're on the track. First thing, it's so hard to see the end of the backstretch with any sort of reference. So on the inside wall, there are braking markers. You see those white signs on the left side. It counts down from 6. So he's going to look at those braking markers. He's going to lift. He's going to try to get under this orange box because you're going to have to. You're going to see it on the right. Now going around this corner, you see the single white line. That is the right side of what is accepted for pit road entry. If you slide to the right of that white line, that is a pit road violation. Now he's going to come around, lift again. You see him at 86. He's going to slow all the way down to the yellow line. That's 45 miles an hour. You heard Jason Burdett, 4 green. So to your point, Jeff, giving him clear instructions.
And if you wonder why he was like 80 mile an hour when he entered pit road instead of 90 miles an hour, because you actually have to get slower to ramp up your speed to be able to see your tack. Because when you're slowing down, you know, the tack isn't accurate. You can get a misreading and you're going faster than you think you're going. So you actually got to get below your RPMs and then build back up to it and get that speed where you want it.
There are those markers I mentioned. See on the left-hand side right here, 6, 5, 4. That's your braking markers, because when you go down that backstretch, this is a wide open racetrack. There's no markers on the wall that you need. And I was amazed. You see right here, this shows it. What you can't see, I'm going to draw one more time. The line is way down there. That orange box and line on the ground is near impossible at car height, sitting in the pace car. I couldn't see that at all. My only reference point was the 6 to the 1. So that's why this practice is kind of so important. Like you said, Jeff, they shouldn't have green flag pit stops, but this same thing will happen in about 2 hours for the Cup Series. High probability they could see green flag pit stops.
And what started all of this, Dave, like in the first race that we pitted where we pit here, is the reason why is because we're seeing pack racing on a very narrow racetrack. And so let's imagine that Jeb has 10 rows in front of him, and they all decide to pit. Where do you go? And you'd have to slow down so much to make pit road entrance. You'd have to be going really slow in the middle of the corner. They're trying to avoid a big wreck from cars getting on the pit road. We see wrecks all the time at Daytona and Talladega getting on pit road, and they're much wider than this racetrack. So how can you where do you put the car for the speed that you need to be going so that you do not cause crashes?
So then the communication's got to be clear, because in my mind right there, what Jeb Burton just did would be a pit road violation. He went to the right of the white line. He used the banking of the apron. NASCAR wants some separation there because, remember, cars are going to be on the racetrack at 175 miles an hour. So what he just did right there by going from the flat to the first lane of banking, watch as he goes, see how flat the car is? Well, it's going to be way easier up here with a little bit of banking. But how NASCAR's explained it to us is that right single white line, picture that as the grass on a commitment, on an access lane or a wall at Martinsville. You cannot go to the right of that. So where he is currently, he's now had a pit road violation, even though he gets back down.
Right here, y'all line in 3, 2,
saw that he took the car to the garage area, so perhaps he was just taking it home, but I'll make sure he's aware of that.
Text him, Jeff. He's your family.
Jeff's nephew, Jeff.
If he gets penalized for that in the race, I'm blaming Jeff.
Why is it always Uncle's fault?
No, you mentioned the pit road entry. I mean, we saw it last week.
3, 2, 1, right here.
On the streets of Chicago, right? Jensen Button jumped down to get out of the way, but not far enough out of the way, and Chris Buescher nerfed him around right at the entry to pit road.
We think about winning races as these big, bold moves, and sometimes that indeed is what ultimately wins the race. But what keeps you in contention are the little things. And if you mess the little things up, the big thing doesn't matter because you're not in position to win. So this is, some teams opted not to practice this. Not every team said, hey, I'm going to roll out there and practice. Some teams opted not to do this. I don't know why you wouldn't do it. I don't understand the harm, but this is unique. It's different. I would give my driver every opportunity to be prepared for it.
Well, just remember those 2 RCR entries that had transmission issues. They didn't get the opportunity. So
keep digging,
the stages tonight, 40, 40, and 83. It's that 83 lapper that I'm a little concerned might have green flag pit stops.
So I hear they could go about 77. You're going to start a couple laps into it with the way the caution works. You probably need to run 80. So you're for sure 3 laps short, 4.5 miles. Pack racing, I think you're going to see a little bit of fuel conservation early.
3, 2, 1.
Plus, after the 11 yellows, I think it was in the spring, it'd be if we go 80-something, I unfortunately think that must mean we had a lot of yellows in the first 2 stages because it would have to be a small field.
Cup Series driver Ryan Blaney getting ready to see what he can do on Atlanta Motor Speedway's high banks. Qualifying coming up for them. In between, we'll head down to the Peacock pit box when we come back from this break.